The top 1% don't worry about money, not because they have more of it than they could ever spend, not because they got lucky, not because they were born into the right family. They don't worry about money because they think about it in a completely different way to everyone else. And today I'm going to show you exactly what that looks like. Meet Daniel. Daniel is 31 years old. He earns good money, decent salary, stable job, the kind of income most people would be grateful for. He has a savings account he barely touches. He invests a little every month because someone told him he should. He checks his phone every time a payment goes out. He knows roughly what comes in, has a vague sense of what goes out, and every few months he sits down, stares at his bank statements, and wonders where it all went. Daniel is not bad with money. Daniel is doing what most people do, reacting to money instead of thinking about it. Now meet Sophie. Sophie earns less than Daniel, not dramatically less, but less. Sophie has not checked her bank account with anxiety in 2 years. She knows exactly what her money is doing at every moment, not because she obsesses over it, but because she designed a system a long time ago and her money runs itself. When her boiler broke last year, she paid for it the same afternoon without touching a single investment. When the market dropped 22% in a bad quarter, she did not panic. She did not sell. She did not even think about it because Sophie knows something Daniel does not, and it has nothing to do with how much either of them earns. The difference between Daniel and Sophie is not income, it is not discipline, it is not willpower, it is a single shift in how they think about money. And that shift is this: the top 1% do not think about money as something they earn and spend. They think about money as a system they build once and then let run. Everything else flows from that one idea. Let me show you exactly what that system looks like and how ordinary people end up with extraordinary financial security, not by earning more, but by thinking differently. The first thing the top 1% understand, and most people never figure out, is that financial security is not about how much money comes in. It is about the gap between what comes in and what goes out, and what you do with that gap. Most people focus entirely on the income side. They want a raise, they want a promotion, they want a side hustle. And income matters. Of course it does. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Most people who earn more simply spend more. Lifestyle expands to fill whatever the salary allows, and the gap stays the same or gets smaller. The wealthy do not think this way. They protect the gap obsessively. Every pound or dollar that flows through their life either serves a purpose or gets redirected. Nothing leaks out silently. Nothing disappears into vague categories like entertainment or other. They know to the penny what their money is doing. Not because they are obsessive, but because they built a system that shows them automatically, I want you to do something this week that most people never do. Pull up your last 3 months of bank statements and go through every single transaction. Not quickly, properly categorize everything. Housing, food, transport, subscriptions, entertainment, everything. Then ask yourself one honest question. Of every pound I spent in the last 90 days, how much of it did I consciously choose to spend and how much of it just happened? For most people, the answer is sobering. Money has been leaving their account every month for things they forgot they signed up for. Subscriptions to services they never use, streaming platforms they thought they canceled, software trials that converted silently into paid plans. When I first did this exercise, I found 74 pounds a month disappearing into things I had completely forgotten about. That is nearly 900 pounds a year invested consistently over a decade at average market returns. That forgotten money becomes close to 15,000 pounds. 15,000 pounds not from earning more, from reading a bank statement. The second thing the top 1% understand is something that sounds almost too simple to be true, but it is the foundation everything else is built on. They separate their money before they have a chance to spend it. Most people earn their salary, it lands in one account, and they spend what is left after covering the essentials, then save whatever happens to be left at the end of the month. Here's the problem with that approach. There is almost never anything left. Not because there's not enough money, but because money sitting in a visible account is money that gets spent. The wealthy reverse the process completely. The moment money comes in, it is already allocated. A percentage goes to investments automatically. A percentage goes to an emergency fund. A percentage goes to an emergency fund. A percentage goes to specific future goals. And only what remains goes to day-to-day living. They never decide whether to invest or not because the decision is already made. Automation removes willpower from the equation, and willpower, as every human being eventually discovers, is a completely unreliable financial strategy. Set up a standing order today. The moment your salary lands, your investment contribution leaves. Not at the end of the month, not when you remember on payday automatically before you see it sitting there. You will not miss what you never had the chance to spend. And month by month, quietly and without drama, your wealth builds itself in the background while you get on with your life. Now let's talk about the thing that keeps most people financially fragile their entire lives. And it is not debt, it is not low income, it is not even bad investments. It is the absence of a buffer. Think about this for a moment. Nearly 60% of people in the UK and US could not cover an unexpected 500-pound bill without going into debt or selling something. More than half the people around you are one broken appliance, one unexpected bill, one difficult month away from financial crisis. And here's why that matters so much. When you have no buffer, every emergency becomes a crisis, and every crisis destroys the investment progress you have worked so hard to build. You are forced to sell at the worst possible time. You pull money out when the market is down. You lose months or years of compound growth in a single afternoon. The emergency fund is not the boring part you do before the exciting part. It is the thing that makes everything else work. It is insurance on every investment you will ever make. Here's how to size it. Add up your true monthly expenses: rent or mortgage, food, utilities, transport, the things that must be paid no matter what. Multiply that number by 5. That is your target. Keep it in a high-yield savings account, accessible within 24 hours, earning 4 or 5% interest, and never touched for anything that is not a genuine emergency with this in place. When life gets expensive, you handle it quietly from your buffer without selling a single investment, without going into debt, without disrupting a single part of your financial plan. The wealthy are not financially resilient because nothing bad ever happens to them. They are resilient because they built the buffer. That means bad things do not become catastrophes. Here's something that most financial content never tells you because it is not exciting, it does not get clicks, and it does not make for a compelling story. But it is the most important thing I'm going to say today. If you're carrying high interest debt right now, you should not be investing. I know that goes against everything you've heard: start early, compound interest, time in the market. All of that is true, but here's the mathematics that no one puts next to those motivational quotes. The average credit card charges between 20 and 30% interest every year. The stock market returns roughly 10% in a good year. If you're carrying a credit card balance and putting money into investments at the same time, you're earning 10% on one side and losing 25% on the other. You're not building wealth, you're filling a bath with the plug out and wondering why the water level never rises. Any debt above 7% interest gets destroyed before a single pound goes into any investment. Credit cards, personal loans, buy now, pay later, all of it gone first. One exception only: if your employer matches pension contributions, take the match. That is a guaranteed 100% return on day one. Nothing in the world beats that, but outside that one exception, debt first, no debate, no exceptions. Once the debt is cleared and the buffer is built, then we talk about investing. And here's where most people make the mistake that costs them the most money, not in the investments they choose, but in how they behave when those investments move. Because they will move. Markets go up and markets go down. And the single most expensive thing an investor can do is react emotionally to that movement. Studies consistently show that the average investor significantly underperforms the market, not because markets are unfair, not because the game is rigged, but because ordinary investors buy when excitement is at its peak and prices are highest, and they sell when panic sets in and prices are lowest. They chase last year's winners, they follow tips. They check their portfolio obsessively and tweak it constantly, racking up fees and missing the compound growth that only comes from leaving things alone. The wealthy do not do this, not because they are emotionally detached, not because they do not feel the same anxiety when numbers go red. They stay rational because they define their goal before they invested a single pound. They sat down and answered 3 questions in writing. What is this money actually for? When do I need it? And if I watched it drop 30% tomorrow, what would I actually do? Your honest answer to that last question tells you everything you need to know about how to invest. Long time horizon, emotionally resilient. No near-term need for the money. You can afford to be aggressive, higher growth assets, more volatility, more upside. Short time horizon, need the money in a few years. Emotionally cautious. You need stability over maximum return. Not vague goals, specific ones. Not I want to build wealth, but I want 50,000 pounds for a house deposit within 5 years. That one sentence tells you exactly how much to save every month, what return you need, and what risk you can and cannot afford. Vague goals produce vague strategies. Vague strategies produce panic decisions. Panic decisions are how ordinary people lose extraordinary amounts of money. Let me bring this all together, because I know some of you came here wanting to know where to put your money. We will get to that, but here's the truth that every financial video skips over because it is not as exciting as stock tips and investment apps. The best investment strategy in the world placed on top of a broken financial foundation is like putting a designer kitchen in a house with no roof. It looks impressive, it does not hold up. 5 things in order. First, know exactly where your money goes. Audit your last 3 months, cut everything you do not actively use, and calculate your real investable amount. Second, automate your money the moment it arrives. Investment contribution leaves on payday before you see it, before you spend it, before you decide. Third, destroy any debt above 7% before a single pound goes anywhere else. Debt first, no exceptions. Fourth, build 5 months of core expenses in a high-yield savings account so that no emergency can ever force you to sell at the wrong time. Fifth, define a specific goal with a specific number and a specific timeline so that every investment decision you make has a clear reason behind it. And when the market drops, you understand why you're staying put. Do these 5 things and then start investing. When you do, you will not be guessing. You will not be reacting. You will not be Daniel staring at his bank account at midnight wondering what went wrong. You will be building deliberately, consistently on a foundation that does not collapse the first time life gets expensive. That is how ordinary people end up with extraordinary wealth. Not luck, not timing, not finding the right stock. Foundation first, then build. If you want to know exactly where to put your money once all 5 of these are in place, I have left that video right up there. Subscribe if you want to keep building. I will see you in the next one.